Ha ha ha, I have an evil plan. I'm gonna get the disc, oh, wrong side. Gonna put the disc in the console, and then I'm gonna leave it there, and everyone's gonna be like, whoa, how did that get there? It's gonna be such a funny plan. No one's ever gonna see this. And wait, what's going on over there? Oh no! Yeah, whoa! How did that happen? Whoa! When I originally played through Ori and the Blind Forest on Xbox One, I did something I very rarely do. Once the credits rolled, I immediately went on to a second playthrough. Ori is a magnificently beautiful game in so many ways. Obviously it's beautiful visually, but the soundtrack, the underlying story, and even its gameplay are a pure form of unadulterated beauty. And so, Ori coming to Switch isn't just important because it's another Xbox One exclusive on Switch, it's not just important because it's the first game with the Microsoft Studios logo. Ori and the Blind Forest is important because, ahead of Halo 5, ahead of Gears 5, ahead of Forza Horizon 4, this is my favourite Xbox One game, and now it's among my favourite on Switch. Ori is an absolutely stunning game where you could freeze it at any moment and it could easily pass for a work of art. So I was a little concerned if the Switch could even run Ori. Beyond the high-res art, there's also gorgeous particle effects, some impressive lighting, and the screen can get insanely busy at times. Heck, the game was originally intended to be released on Xbox 360 alongside Xbox One, but that version was quietly swept under the rug. So, can Switch handle Ori? Remarkably, yes. This is beat for beat the exact same experience as Xbox One. It still runs at 60 frames per second and is either 1080p docked or 720p handheld. They even added HD Rumble, which is extremely effective in the final showdown, though it's far from a game-changing addition. It actually kinda makes the Switch version a little boring to critique as there's nothing really wrong with it, and also nothing particularly different about it. This is Ori and the Blind Forest completely uncompromised, but now playable on a handheld. And if you completely missed out on the original, Ori is an interconnected platformer with some of the smoothest controls in the business. You can triple jump like in 2D Mario, wall jump like Mega Man X, and later do completely unique things like ricocheting off enemy projectiles. There are some seriously tricky level designs, but given you have enough energy, you can spawn a checkpoint at any time to ease the load. And so there's always a risk factor when making any meaningful progress. You can save after making a really difficult jump, or you can conserve energy in case something really tricky is coming up next. It's never unfairly difficult, but there are moments that require you to read the room and have quick reflexes. Let's just say finishing the game without dying is for insane people. It's how Ori manages to bring all its systems together that really makes the game shine. It's mostly a platformer, but it's also somewhat a Metroidvania, albeit a fairly linear one. You'll end up gaining a lot of different skills, and almost all of them are some variation of jump. You may know that I'm a weirdo who doesn't like double jumps, as to me they feel like a crutch. And Ori has a double jump, but it gets it right. Each core skill feels incredibly refined on its own, but the game often has you chain them together, and to great effect. And just like any good Metroidvania, there's plenty of goodies to backtrack and find with skills gained later in the game. And it's a good thing that platforming is so refined because combat's one of Ori's weaker areas. Your primary attack consists of propelling waves of light and it never feels particularly effective or satisfying. Perhaps it's designed that way to keep Ori feeling fragile, but it's certainly not the focus of the game. There's alternate ways of dealing with enemies like propelling them into spikes, but if there's one area the sequel should address, it's definitely combat. It's not prominent enough to really impact the quality of the game, but it could still be better. However, it's so platforming driven that showdowns aren't even boss fights, but rather platforming labyrinths, somewhat in the style of Metroid's escape sequences. These bring together everything you've learned over the course of a given segment and piles each layer on top of each other, and that's with the added pressure of a collapsing dungeon. These can be insanely challenging, but also pose as some of Ori's best moments, and some of my favourite sequences of any platformer. They're tough, but they feel so good to overcome. The core game only clocks in around 6 to 8 hours, but it's such an intelligent and well-crafted ride that constantly changes things up. Whether that's learning how to use portals, and then using them to get a projectile to a weak wall, or discovering an orb that lets you stand on dangerous platforms, and then finding it has gravity-defying properties too. There's a double purpose for almost every element and ability in this game, and while the rather short runtime may seem like a negative, rest assured there are few games as well paced as this. It may not be a long game, but it's certainly stuck with me. And unlike the original release, which would for some reason block you out of your save file after finishing the game, the definitive edition lets you return to your save just prior to the final boss so that you can go back and find any collectibles you may have missed. There's also new areas and abilities that weren't in the base game, so if you've not played Ori since launch, there's definitely incentives to go back and play the definitive edition. One thing that never quite stopped feeling crazy was the game's Xbox Live integration. You don't have to sign into Xbox Live, but if you do, any achievements you get you real gamer score. So on your Xbox Live account, Ori and the Blind Forest for Nintendo Switch shows up among your Xbox One and PC games. It's kind of surreal. Leaderboards likewise use your Xbox Live ID, which doesn't exactly offer anything new, but it is a bit wild seeing your gamer tag on the Switch. Ignore my deaths, I got very sloppy on one part. It's the start of a new era for Xbox, and it feels like a celebration that it starts with such a graceful game. There isn't anything particularly new or different about Ori and the Blind Forest for Switch. The original still stands as my favourite Xbox One game, and it was an absolute joy experiencing it all over again on Switch. If you've never played Ori before, then you absolutely need to give it a shot. I loved Ori and the Blind Forest. I do hope the combat has a bit more impact in the sequel, but the platforming is unparalleled and has a presentation that almost no other game can quite match. This is simply one of my favourite games of the entire generation. Thank you so much for watching, and of course be sure to subscribe to Game Explained for a lot more reviews and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye!